If you don't want to build a really big business, don't take venture capital. The math isn't in your favor. Do you want to build a really, really big company? Venture capital is the path for you. That's where the product exists. Take the risk, take the swing, go for it. And so the question is...
Right now, we are living in a once-in-a-generation shift in technology. AI is moving fast, but the real bottleneck isn't building smarter systems, it's keeping them secure. Today's guest on Founders and Builders is James Green, partner at CRV, and in my opinion, one of the most original thinkers when it comes to early stage investing and cybersecurity. And in today's episode, we'll talk about how AI-generated code is opening up massive attack surfaces for hackers, and why voice clones are a trap on the rise, and why you should have a safe word with your family. You'll also learn what makes a founder stand out before any of the traction or any of the hype.
If you want to go public today, you've got to be in the $300 million plus range, growing 40%, or you've got to be real profitable.
I'm Joe. This is Founders and Builders. As always, if you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to hit subscribe down below. And now let's get into it.
You've been in VC now for what, 10 years?
Just under.
Yeah. You were at Insight Partners for just over 5. Now you're at CRV, Charles River Ventures. What is the biggest misconception about venture capitalists?
I think about this a lot because my wife likes to say I don't have a real job. I really feel like venture capitalists are looked down upon as people who can often waste founders' time, and that they aren't giving people the time of day, or if they are, they're just wasting their time because they're never going to invest. And I think the unfortunate reality is, I probably take 30 new meetings a week, and I'm going to make 4 to 5 investments in a fund. A fund's 3 years. So to do a basic math, I'm probably going to meet somewhere between 4,000 and 5,000 companies and make, call it 5 investments for ease of math. Like, it's going to feel like I'm wasting founders' time. And I'm not doing it, and investors in general are not doing it because that's what they want to do. Like, that's like a farce. We're trying to meet the best people in the world. It's just, our entire job is to get conviction over an infinitesimally small percentage. And that's, it's something that, it's not by definition, we are going to be wasting people's time, but it's not on purpose. And I do feel bad that, we'll meet the best founders in the world, and sometimes we just won't invest because it's not the right stage fit, or it's not the right category, or for one reason or another. But I try and be upfront about it, and explain to people what our constraints are and what we invest in as a firm. As to try and be as judicious of founders' time. Like, I had a guy just now email me saying, "Hey, we're raising our Series B. We're going to raise $200 million." And I was like, that's probably not in our sweet spot. We do Series Bs, but most of the time we spend on seed and A as a core focus. And he should go spend time with the Iconics, the Green Oaks, the Insights of the world, who are later stage, whereas we're really focused on the seed and A market.
And your specialism is in cybersecurity.
Yep.
Why? Like, what fascinates you about the cyberspace?
I feel like I'm gonna still have a job in 10 years, so that's great. One, as long as there continues to be nation state actors, I'm gonna still have a job. Unless the political climate changed while we were in this podcast, that will still happen.
Mm-hmm. As long as we have countries and people are trying to attack them.
Right. And
you have a job.
Right. Last time I was on the internet, that was still happening. And so that's good. The other thing is, like, at every era of technology shift, whether it was from on-premise to cloud, or cloud to mobile, or we're in the AI era now, there are new attacks. And not only are there new attacks, there are new forms of attacks, and there are new surface areas.
By surface area, what do you mean? Because I hear this term thrown around a lot. What does that mean?
In the past, we would be sat in this office, and your laptop, or probably on desktop computer, would be wired into the network, and the network would have a firewall. And now we have mobiles which have applications that are probably not tested in the way that you might think, which are built on open source software which is not tested in the way that you would like. and we are connected to networks that may have malware. If you've ever used airport Wi-Fi, depending on which country you're in, you probably have malware on your device in some capacity.
They call them Wi-Fi pineapples. It sounds cute, but it's actually super malicious.
Very, very bad. Like, my wife ignores me, but she always goes on public Wi-Fi, and I'm like, the more I know about cyber, the less I want to go on public Wi-Fi. To go back to the original question, that's why I focus on it. And it feels like one of the few long-term, really, really durable categories. Consumer will come and go. We're in a new rise of AI companions and all things around consumer. But if you go back the last 5 years, it's been a very slow category, and it's very hard to be focused on a category if it's not at least somewhat enduring.
So you talked about the surface area. In other words, like the size of the estate of a person or company that like an attacker could try to infiltrate, let's say. But tell us a bit more about like the kind of severity of the threats and like what's changed now that we have AI in these LLMs.
In the past, if I was to try and phish you, and for the people who are listening don't know what that is when you send someone an email or a call or something and get them to click a link or give you information. In the past, I would write, "Hello, I have locked myself out of this account. Please click this link and reset your password." That is not particularly sophisticated. Whereas now I can say, okay, let's do a deep research query on you as a person. It's like, oh, you live in X neighborhood. You drive X type of car. You have bought this. You went to this school. You went to this university. You've had this job. These are your partners. You can kind of map a whole person
Totally.
much faster. So the sophistication of almost all sorts of outreach, positive and negative types of outreach, is much better than it used to be. And so AI is enabling attackers to attack people in a much more sophisticated way. And they can also do it concurrently. You could create 100 voice agents using 11 labs, using this podcast for my voice. And you could call somebody, one of the founders I work with, and say, "Hey, this is James. I need you to pay the bonus to X executive because they had an amazing quarter. You should use this link."
Yeah.
And it would sound like me because of this podcast or because of another podcast and so we're in an era that it's really scary.
Yeah, with this deep fake, like both visually and just like a fake WhatsApp call, let's say. Like it was one thing, we can all look to our parents. I don't know if your mom and dad do this when they send you a screenshot of an email or some call that they got.
Amazing.
And it's just like, is this real, Joe? Is this not? I'm like, Mom, please stop asking me. Like, if you're asking me, you already have the answer. But if they were able to impersonate my voice, she wouldn't think twice.
Oh, you got to have a safe word. If my mom is listening, which I don't know if she will, she knows that there's a safe word. And
what's your safe word?
Absolutely can't tell you that. It'd be like giving you my password, almost as a security number.
Really? You have one with your mom? You have like a...
Yeah, safe word.
Oh, wow.
Like, you should have a safe word with people.
Right.
You just look at the growth of the best voice software companies in the world. So like the Sierras of the world, like the people like that who are utilizing these voice models, and they're growing really quickly. Not surprisingly, they're doing it for good. Let's agree on that.
11 Labs, another awesome company.
But attackers are using it not for good. And so there's going to be voice fraud at like a kind of insane level. And unfortunately, the vast majority of the world don't know voice models exist. Like, one of my favorite things is to try and explain to my parents what's going on in the world. They have no idea that anything outside of like a chat GPT interface is AI. Like, my wife works at Sierra and they still don't know what voice AI is.
Right.
So like, what is the average person? There's no way they know about it.
Yeah. For those that haven't heard of Sierra, what do they do?
It's a company founded by Brett Taylor and Clay Bavor. It does customer service AI.
Okay.
So they're some of the biggest companies in the world. They automate the customer service using AI.
Got it. What is the scariest that you can share cybersecurity threat that you've come across?
There are regularly threats inside of Microsoft that are found and then given safe disclosure. So they tell Microsoft, hey, this is found. Threats in Copilot, as of recently, scare me a lot. Because I talked to a security leader of a big company everyone will have heard of. And they said 5 years ago, they knew it was 90% of their code base. So almost everything they knew. There were some projects that were fun projects that didn't have like important critical information, but mostly knew it. Now they know what's in 10% of their code base because of the rise of Cursor, Windsurf,
Right.
Copilot,
Right.
the AI code gen platforms that we've all seen and probably used.
Yeah, where developers, my understanding outside in is like developers have moved from writing code by hand to just reviewing.
But even that's been done by AI.
Right.
So companies like CodeRabbit are some of the fastest growing companies around because they're using AI code review. So if you have AI code gen, AI code review, AI code testing, AI deployment, if there's a security issue in any part of that stack,
right,
what happens?
Yeah.
What happens is you have a vulnerable application and you may not know. It's going to be really bad. Like at some point, there will be an extremely sophisticated attack by either a nation state or a private group of hackers. And there will be an AI generated application that leaks like Equifax-like data to the world.
Yeah.
It's going to be really bad.
Yeah. And just this, you mentioned the definition of phishing earlier, but what I found pretty, even 6-7 years ago when I was speaking to folks that were working in or running cybersecurity teams, all of the rage there was spear phishing, right? How can you get hyper personalized about your attack? And it just feels like, back to your point, you don't even need my voice, but like if you know where I've been, like what I've been spending on, who I've been with, it's, national insurance number. I mean, like the breadth and depth of these attacks on a personal level.
Oh, it's going to be so bad.
Yeah.
So good for me. I'm going to still have a job.
Campaigns, especially, with the rise of cancel culture. I just feel like if you wanted to like prompt inject a negative experience onto someone, it's much easier to do that these days.
But even just think of like agents. So I made a dinner reservation tonight using OpenAI Operator, fully agents. There will be a world, you could pick a line, 1, 2, 7, 20 years, where everyone will have an agent that they can work with that fully works, has all the authority of me, James, but is just like my AI personal assistant that's 24/7.
Right. Digital twin, maybe.
But how do you validate the identity of that? How do you validate the authentication? Should my agent have access to my Chase bank account? Should it be able to make wire transfers? How do you validate that I have given it permission to go into the Chase account, to send the money, to who they send the money to? Imagine if you had your own personal agent and I breached it for one way or another and got it to send money to a shell corp in a country. We sent that through 15 different accounts and then it ended up in Bitcoin. We split it into a bunch of different cryptocurrencies and Bob's your uncle, you have no money. That's not a crazy thought. Like that can happen if we have millions of agents. I think there will probably be 100 times the number of agents there are people in the world.
Right.
It's like 1 trillion agents. When do we think that will happen? Like soon? Like probably. And because they're ephemeral, they just come up and down. You may have a permanent agent that is your 24/7, like, but maybe I have an email agent. I just have an agent that just looks at my email and says, okay, I never have to deal with spam again. It automatically gets rid of my spam. That'd be great. Yes, things get real wild in the AI world. It's really fun.
What can we do about it? You're obviously, you mentioned you're meeting over the fund's life cycle, thousands of companies. You may invest in like between 4 and 10, let's say.
Personally,
As you're feeling generous, let's say it's
as a firm, we invest many more. I have to give, I have partners who only do seed investments and they invest more. There are 6 of us who I'm extremely grateful to work with.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm on the lower end of the velocity.
Yeah. So a few fun facts about CRV. You guys have been in business for about 54 years now. You're on fund number 19.
20.
20 now.
20, yep.
You've invested in some amazing consumer companies, Twitter, DoorDash, but also some great B2B successes like Airtable and Vercel.
Yep.
Talk to us about the edge and the frontier of cybersecurity. What are you seeing in the market? Like, how can we combat these threats? What are you seeing when you're meeting these founders? Like, what excites you?
Let's take a longitudinal view. Over the last 20 years, threats have gone way up for people looking at the camera. And the number of people who work in cyber has crept up at a line that is barely going up. So the delta between threats and people has been insane. Somehow, over the last 2 years, that line has got way worse. Like, the angle of the curve has got to the point where the delta looks silly. You would say that the growth before was tiny, and now the growth is so big. So we need to find a way to have more automation in this world, whether it's in vulnerability, network, email, identity, application, you name it, we need automation.
Yeah. Because we've been able to automate and therefore replicate a bunch of threats. We need the same for the response.
Yeah, one of the common sayings in my world is like, attackers only have to be right once, defenders have to be right 100% of the time.
And that intuitively makes sense. That's why it sounds like such a hard problem.
It's also why people spend a lot of money.
Right.
Because if you're wrong once, really bad.
Yeah.
And so, what's getting me excited is we're using AI to automate different areas of these alerts that historically you would have had armies of people looking at, but now you have automated agents. And the ones that are very severe, you have the best agents, the best people in the world looking at. So that's super interesting. I am enamored by security around agents, whether it's identity, access, auth. I think that's fascinating. I think there are, and I won't name them because I'm not trying to get a hit list on me. There are 3 to 5 public cyber companies that have NPS probably worse than companies that everybody hates, like PeopleSoft that no one ever uses anymore. Like, just terrible NPS. Everyone hates them. The cost of the products are going up and the products don't work. Like, just all the things that people hate. I love the most ambitious founders in the world going after those companies. They're archaic, the product doesn't work, we have new architecture, and we can beat them. And that is really fun. One of my partners a couple of years ago said something to me which was stuck with me, which is, if a founder looks you in the face and is like, I think we're going to be $1 billion in revenue, you should probably take that person pretty seriously, because that's an obnoxious thing to say. It's probably not true, right? How many companies get to $1 billion in revenue? Like, very few.
Yeah, it reminds me of that saying. I think I heard it from Musk, Thiel actually, when he was referring to Musk. He said, I would never bet against Elon. You should never underestimate the man who overestimates himself.
It's just, except maybe through index funds, I'm not invested in any Elon companies. But it's been pretty good so far. Like, as a general, you look at a long-term view, that seems kind of right. Yeah, I forget who said it, and it's been repeated so often in Silicon Valley, but in tech, and I think the word was enterprise software, but you shouldn't bet against second-time founders, in that they probably know what they're doing. I don't know what number time founder Musk is, but he seems to have done pretty well.
I'd love to, because you're an expert not just in cybersecurity, but you also have a really interesting story of how you got into VC. You were, I think, employee number 9 at CarWow.
I was very early, but I take very little credit for that business. James Hind, who is the founder and CEO, did me a world of favors that I don't know to what extent he knows that, but I was sat in a dorm room, cold emailing founders in the UK because I didn't have a US visa, so I couldn't work in the US at the time. I was on a student visa, and this was pre-current administration and the visa things that are going on now. And I would love to find that email, but it was from my college email address. I don't actually have the email, but it was something along the lines of, I have absolutely no skills, but you can pay me basically zero. I just want to work my ass off.
Okay, so it's going well.
Yeah, it was going great. There was a website that I don't even know if exists anymore, which was called workinstartups.co.uk.
Yeah, I remember.
Which was on some terrible HTML file that there was.
The logo kind of sucked.
It was like orange. It was a horrible website. Anyway, I went down it, and I was sat next to my college roommate at the time. Is British. And we were both like, okay, how do we find a job? And so I go through all these things, and James responds to my email, and he's like, all right, I'll meet you. And I happened to be going home to the UK a couple of weeks later, and I talked to him, and he was like, yeah, sure, you can work here for a bit. So I live on the floor of a high school friend's house in South Kensington. And
there are worse floors.
There were worse floors, but people can't see, but I'm quite tall. So I couldn't actually fit on the sofa.
I can confirm you are very tall.
So I took the sofa pillows off the sofa, put them on the floor, and slept there for weeks on end. And I couldn't. Love James. Didn't get paid very much, so I couldn't really afford to do anything. And so I would bike in to Holborn, where the office was, and there was the company was growing really fast. They just raised money from episode 1, then Boulderton, then Excel. Fred Destin led the round. But so it was growing really fast. A bunch of people were joining, and there was a ping pong table, which if you got donuted in and around, you had to buy the whole office donuts because the office was above a Krispy Kreme, and I couldn't afford to lose. And so I would only play the people who I knew were bad, so that if I lost, I wouldn't have to buy the whole office donuts because I couldn't afford it at the time. So anyway, I attribute a lot to like my early love of startups, but it was in the episode 1 office. They were like subleasing from episode 1, and so I met those guys back then. And then, because I couldn't believe anyone would give anyone money. I was like, we barely have a product. This seems like a crazy idea. Why did anyone give anyone money?
And for those folks that don't know CarWow, tell us about the business. Like, how did it work? How did it make money?
Yeah, it was an early platform to buy new cars online. And it was also a very early... when companies get started, they try all sorts of things to figure out distribution. And they had produced just really incredible content through YouTube and continue to do so.
I remember seeing, actually, they were like, the new Vauxhall Corsa has come out. Here's 10 things you need to know.
Yeah.
And here's how it drives.
Exactly. It was kind of like the YouTube version of Top Gear, but actually told you about the car.
Right.
And they made money when every car sold. So we had a screen to use the Vauxhall Corsa. I think because it was Vauxhall something, it's test my memory. There was a screen, and it was like, how many of Vauxhall Corsas have we sold across all the different dealers in the UK? And so the goal was like to try and get dealers online. So like you would cold call dealers and be like, hey, you should try this. And they would basically be like, hey, they don't have an online presence at the time. Okay. And so there was just an early version of that.
Just to double check, you weren't holding any stock. You were basically drop shipping cars.
No, we were basically a front end for dealerships. So it was like, you go on, you want to buy a Vauxhall Corsa, here's all the specs you want. We would say that James in Nottingham has this exact car. This is the price, confirm the price. And you basically have 24 hours to go pick it up. And you go, you buy the car, And then the website basically gets like a lead gen.
It seems like such an obvious business. Why did it work?
There was a US version called TrueCar, which is exactly the same. And it works because it was like in the early innings of buying things online. I remember growing up, I'm a nerd. I wanted to buy Magic the Gathering cards as a child.
Once a nerd, always a nerd.
Always a nerd. And I was trying to get my mom to buy me Magic the Gathering cards online, and she didn't trust online purchases. She was like, if I put my credit card in line, I will get hacked, which is kind of funny now that I invest in cyber. But, call it 2012 onwards, consumer trust with online purchases kind of became a thing. And so, it's easy to forget the early days of consumer internet where you would buy things online, like think Just Eat, DoorDash, HelloFresh, pick a company. But the idea of buying a car online,
right,
it's a big purchase outside of like, I forget the UK, Purple Bricks was the UK version, and Zillow and Redfin in the US. Like, it's probably the biggest purchase you're going to make online. And it's not like you're actually buying the house online. You still do the whole in-person thing. So it's a very, very big purchase. Outside you buying very expensive watches on certain things, which I don't do.
So you joined super early at Carwow. You did whatever, by any means necessary, any floor I need to sleep on. You were like, I'm in the startup game now. Then you decided the VC was the next move. Like, how did you find out about, get inspired about venture capital and investing?
Well, Carwell was working out of Episodes 1 office, which is a small UK seed fund. Big respect for anyone there who's listening. And thank you for changing my life. I came back to college, and I guess a couple of things happened. One, I really wanted a job because I was very broke. I thought the tech world was super interesting, but I wanted to live in the US. And I really enjoyed what the Episode 1 guys, meeting them, which I'm sure they don't remember this. But then I was like, okay, how can I get into VC out of college? Because I didn't know anything. I literally knew nothing. I had barely worked at a company, and I had barely had any skills. But a number of firms had internships and analyst programs. They hired people out of college to, for lack of a better word, be an overpaid SDR and eventually learn the role of venture capital, sales development rep. So
like junior sales hire, like generating leads.
Yeah, you have no skills but want to learn the trade. And Bessemer has one, Battery has one. I think the premier one is Insight because it's one of the oldest running. It's the broadest speaking. They do private equity transactions as well as venture, although more. Then the business has evolved much over time. And it was a great training ground. I also had known a couple of people who had gone to work there. And so I kind of told them the stories I just told you, which was like, I'd sat in my dorm room, I'd emailed a bunch of founders, and a couple responded, and I did the job. I did the job of meeting people and decided to work at one, which, again, thank God for James Hind, raising from boulders in Excel made me look smarter than I had any right to be. And I remember I was on a train back from New York to Boston, and Ryan Hinkle calls me, who's one of the partners at Insight, and he says, I want to give you an offer. And the signal was terrible on the Amtrak. It was very unclear what was going on there. But I kind of got the gist of it, and that was, I guess, almost 10 years ago. Probably was 10 years ago. That didn't start for a while.
Super quick one from me. Every week, we ask our listeners on the Founders and Builders podcast, what is one tool or one product that they couldn't live without? And this week, it's Ramp. Think of Ramp as the finance co-pilot for your business. And Ramp started as a corporate card, but have now turned into a full spend management platform. Tons of startups and founders I know use it to replace messy finance stacks, many of which they've tried to build in-house themselves. So if you're interested in learning more, check out ramp.com, and also the link is in the show notes down below. But for now, let's get back into the episode.
I love this idea that you are, and you're living proof of it, that you are only one cold email away from changing the whole path.
I have absolutely no shame to cold email. Literally no shame. I don't know if this is true now because I've got older, but I think almost every investment I've ever made has come from a cold email. Like
Them
me
to
sending
you?
them.
Ah, you to them.
Yeah, like I've heard about someone and I've heard about the company through my network or something, and I send them a cold email and they probably don't respond. And then I send them another one. Like I have literally zero shame. Yeah.
Tell us about it then, because what is the secret sauce? You know, some people say, well, it's just a numbers game. You know, people watching the Founders and Builders podcast are a real spectrum of people. People that are interested in working for technology companies, just interested in how tech works and how it's changing the world. The second group is like, you know, people that aspire to start their own company or have already started their own company and maybe are looking for first-time investors, key hires they want to make. What is the secret sauce to cold emailing? How do you make the most of it?
There should be no universe where you have send a bad cold email anymore. You can get people's emails very easily online using one of the various tools.
Yeah.
You can find out about people's interests and investments using deep research from OpenAI. You just use ChatGPT, say, what would be the best email to send to James? And what is the format? And ChatGPT will be trained on this podcast and it will produce an email. So you should have no shame in doing it. So the best way is highly curated, direct, and has something which will catch someone's attention. I try to respond to every email I get sent to. I do not respond to every email, and I apologize to the people who have sent me emails I have not responded to. But to the extent that's, I had a 16-year-old high school kid send me a LinkedIn message this week, being like, here are all the things that you've done. Here are my 3 questions. Do you have 10 minutes to chat? And that was pretty interesting. And I won't take every call. I can't take every call. I often will respond by email.
Yeah.
But a cold email, if correctly directed, is awesome. Notwithstanding, to the extent that you can get someone to intro you who I trust, that's awesome too. Like I for sure would do that. And I try and do that to other people too. If I send someone 10 cold emails and they don't respond to me, I will get someone who I know knows them to tell them to meet me. And they'll say, okay, I'm sorry I didn't respond to your cold emails. That does happen. But we live in an era where some people use the word momentum, some people use the word speed, where I don't really have time to wait for people. I don't really have time to wait for the intro. I know who I want to speak to. I know why I want to speak to them. Let's do it today. Like I don't have time to wait for all these things.
I love this acronym. You see it come up a lot in like sales, in enterprise sales, which is show me you know me. Right. And I think if you can keep this front of mind and put yourself in the shoes of the person receiving the message, and if it seems over professionalized, this is another massive trend that I'm seeing as well. Like the shorter the email, way higher likelihood somebody responds. Like it should sound like a WhatsApp message.
I also have people cold WhatsApp me. I cold WhatsApp people all the time.
Okay, that is bold.
I will ask a friend to give me their number because they'll probably have it, and I will send them a cold WhatsApp. Yeah. And let me tell you, they respond to that.
Have you tested that Americans versus Europeans? I just know that some of my German friends will be like, get me off your list now. Have you heard of GDPR?
Yeah, but if you want to get into the decision maker at a large company and you need one signature to close your quarter and they will not respond to your emails, you better find their phone number. Because if you don't, you're going to miss the quarter. And that could be the difference between raising a growth round and not raising a growth round. Have absolutely no shame and go figure that out. And so I understand GDPR, I understand privacy, I understand all these things. I do. But
California has done this to you, man.
Yeah, I just have no shame. Like I actually blame Insight for this. I have absolutely no shame. There are many good and bad things about every firm. One of the things about Insight is that they have a leaderboard for analysts.
Right.
Where if you make a call and you have a productive call, you can't just say, I called someone. That doesn't count. It gets logged into Salesforce and thus gets logged into the leaderboard. I am hyper competitive. And I didn't have time to wait to schedule things. I would cold call people. They'll pick up. Like they do. Sometimes they're busy. They say, okay, let's schedule something. Great. Cool. I'll send you an email. Hi, I'm that James guy that just randomly called you. Yeah, I have absolutely no shame. Zero. And Jeff Horrig is the founder, went on another podcast recently which is one of the very few he's ever done. And he said he looks for people who have high EQ, high drive, but there's like a lack of shame or some derivative of that. I have absolutely no shame. I'm gonna say I want to get in front of the best people in the world, and they're busy, so I'm gonna keep trying.
More cold emails, more at bats. You mentioned Insight. For those that don't know it, Databricks, Wiz, Weights and Biases, a company we recently had the founder of that just got acquired by CoreWeave. Some amazing investments. What is the behind the curtain, your take on how Insight has become so successful as a growth stage fund?
Insight has done a very, very good job of seeing most things. And they don't have the advantage of being in San Francisco and going to the hacker houses. And
they're based on the East Coast, right?
Based in New York. They're in the Grace building on 42nd Street, because I remember leaving that building thousands of times in the middle of the night.
Right next to a beautiful park. What's it called?
No, it's right next to Bryant Park, which is probably a couple of months from having the Bank of America sponsored winter park. Yeah, and the office is above a Sweet Green, which was the only reason I didn't put on 50 pounds when I worked there. But New York based, it doesn't have the advantage of being in the venture flow, for a lack of a better word.
Totally.
So, they do see those companies, but they see them later. But the way that they've structured it is that they hire 8, which was my class, to 20, which whatever the current class is now, of smart, hungry people who have no shame, and call a lot of people. If you do that enough, and you have a good enough brand, you'll meet a number of good companies.
Right. It's the Wolf of Wall Street of startup investing.
Totally. Except not fraudulent. And the way that they've done it in a way that I don't think is particularly articulated to the outside world, but they functionally have a handful, 2 handfuls of extremely smart hedge fund managers at the top, which Jeff Horing is the founder of one of them, but Devin, Richard, Mike, there's a number. And they make the decisions in that the information bubbles up, flows through the filters, all these things, and gets to the decision makers. By the time it gets to the decision makers, it's been touched hundreds of times by different things and relatively well packaged. And they will say, this package is good or that package is good. And because they're good at their job, they tend to have good returns. Wiz is actually a fantastic example where they got in quite early, but it's a different product to what I sell and what the standard San Francisco venture ecosystem is. But
what do you mean by that?
For a start, it's a growth fund, right? They had Wiz is a great example. They do have a number of good early investments and very, very successful early investments. They are I think as of recent count, $12 billion fund. The current one, the last one was 20, I think. The internet will keep me honest. As a result, they have to deploy hundreds of millions of dollars or billions of dollars. And it's very challenging to deploy that in $3 million chunks into 3 people who are working 10 feet behind you. And so we sell a different product, right? I will deploy $50 to $120 million in this current fund. That could be one check that Jeff writes in an afternoon. It's just a different product.
What do you need to see to have that level of conviction to deploy that amount of capital?
It depends on the fund size and depends on your risk tolerance. If you were Massa at SoftBank writing a $50 million check, you probably need to see a pitch deck. Think back to the Vision Fund days.
Right.
If you are a $750 million fund, to have the conviction to write a $50 million check, that's a relatively concentrated bet. I forget who it is, and the Valley is a series of people taking credit for each other's tropes. But the strategy of doing seeds and then big checks in your winners kind of makes sense to me, in that you should invest and have reasonable ownership of the smartest people you ever meet as an early stage venture capitalist. And in my case, it's like I should do a handful of seeds in the best cyber entrepreneurs I ever meet. Should absolutely do that.
Yeah. And in the early stage, am I right in thinking that you're indexing heavily on the founder?
100% on the founder.
Because idea, team, market, you've seen change many times.
Seen change many times. I'm having this conversation with a founder right now. He doesn't know what he's building. We have an agreement that he's not going to build a coffee shop. That was the first thing we agreed. And I use that as like a joke, but it's like, all right, you don't know what you're going to build. Please don't build a Starbucks competitor. Because if you do, that's not where I fit it. But as long as you roughly agree that you're probably going to do cybersecurity, I can be really helpful. If you are going to do a Facebook competitor, I'm probably not helpful. My partner is, I'm not. So, but as long as you think you're going to do cyber, I care about the idea and that I would really like you not to compete with the portfolio. But we can work together on the premise that you're going to build something interesting in cyber. And as long as you are truly exceptional, or people reference very well about you, or you're extremely eloquent, or you're thinking big enough, I think we'll end up on an idea that's interesting. And it's all mitigated by check size, right? Like, I probably am not going to write a $50 million seed check and someone who doesn't have an idea.
Yeah.
Somebody might, Masa might, I wouldn't.
Yeah. Could I just get your thoughts on something, go a bit deeper into something you just said? You said, as long as you don't open a coffee shop, and as long as you're thinking big enough. So this is something that I'd love to get your honest perspective on, because I speak to a lot of founders that they're kind of getting pressure, especially in the early days, from two sides. One is, as you said, you need to be thinking big enough. You need to be able to sell not just what you're building today and selling to customers, but the vision of what the company could become, right? And you need to have at least thought about what those concentric circles could look like in terms of like market sizing. But then the second thing is, that's outward pressure. Then inward pressure is like, but you need to be laser focused on the problem you solve for this set of customers. In fact, this specific person within this type of account that you want to sell to today. And you need to be able to show me early traction that you're able to do that from being so laser focused. Like, how do you not overwhelm the founder with like two signals in opposite directions? What do they need to show you?
If you don't want to build a really big business, you just want to build a really good business. There are lots of really good businesses that are not really big. Don't take venture capital. The math isn't in your favor. If you want to, like, in your heart, you want to build a really big company, venture capital is the path for you. That's where the product exists. Take the risk, take the swing, go for it. You are unlikely, unless, in fact, it's impossible for you to build a $1 billion revenue company overnight. It's just not going to happen. And so the question is not how to do it. It's like, what do you want as a person? Do you want to build a really, really big company? And it's really okay not to. Like, Christ, do you want to build a $100 million revenue company? That's sick. That's probably worth a lot of money.
Can I just say, I will take that. I'll do it. I would love to build a $100 million annual recurring revenue business.
That is extremely valuable. There is no good public company of that scale. There's just not in the software world. Like, there are biotech companies that are valued at $20+ billion without a single dollar in revenue. That's not my business. But if you want to go public today, you've got to be in the $300 million plus range, growing 40%, or you've got to be real profitable.
How profitable?
The rule of 40 is something which people have talked about forever, which is either you're growing more than 40% and then you can be burning capital, or if you're growing less than 40%, you need to be profitable. And the number of, from your burn ratio, your burn percentage to your growth has to equal 40 or higher.
Okay. And the sum of those.
Yes. If you look like that, and you're at scale, you're going to be a valuable company. But if you don't want to go for that scale, then you probably shouldn't raise a bunch of venture money. It's super okay. And I've thought about it myself too. Like, should I go found a coffee shop? Think, no, I like my job. I like the risk. I like the scale that we're going for. It keeps me awake at night.
Yeah.
But if the ceiling of what we're going for is $100 million in revenue, we should not work together.
Yeah. Money versus smart money. I know this is kind of banded out, around a lot amongst both VC and founder communities. Should you take the bigger check or should you take the smart money? What's your take on this? Is it all just a big illusion? You should just go for the biggest valuation possible, ideally with partners and people at the fund that you enjoy working with and have your back in the hard times? Or really, are there ways that VCs can be value adding? And maybe if so, how?
smart money can become dumb money real fast, in that if you think someone's smart but are not aligned on what we're doing, and not truly aligned, not just someone says something, you really dig in and not aligned, it can become very problematic for your business. So I like aligned money rather than smart money. Hopefully they're both. Again, the spirit of stealing my partner's quotes, Reed, one of my partners, says that you should take good money from good people at good prices. And I do subscribe to that, in that if someone comes to you at a good price, who are a reputable firm, who you think is a good person and aligned with your values, that's a good setup. And you could run a process and optimize for price, brand, whatever. But if someone's there and offering you something, you're trying to build a business, you're not trying to raise money. So like, you should check if this is a market price. Like, but you can do that by just talking to people. You don't need to run a whole process. And the truth is, like, all VCs do is price things in the market. We know what the price of an asset should look like when it looks like X and it's growing like Y in in Z category. Like that, we know that. And as long as you're upfront and honest about what things should be priced at, you can get things moving pretty quickly. On the, like, should people optimize for the highest valuation? I don't think it's up to me to decide people how to sell their equity in their company. I really try not to be deeply opinionated about it. What I try and do is connect people who have done both. Sell at high price, sell at fair price, sell at low price, from different types of asset classes and different types of investors, just so they understand what menu they're picking from and they can make the choice. In terms of value add, many VCs are value destructive. They suck up founders' time for things that are unnecessary. They pontificate advice of which they know nothing about. They don't do something when they said they were going to do it on time. They give information to somebody that they shouldn't have done. There's countless ways VCs can be value destructive. There are also countless ways that they can be really helpful. And we can call them pivot points, crucible moments, whatever you call it. A couple of times that are really helpful are when money's going in, when money's going out. We're functionally capitalists. It's in the name. We're very good at that part. Like, very good deal people in general, very sophisticated. So they can be very helpful there. They can be extremely helpful in market intel. How much did JP Morgan pay for a similar product over the last 5 years? I know that answer because I have 20 portfolio companies that I can anonymize and tell you. How much should we pay our first VP of sales? All this, like, market information, very, very helpful. And the other thing they can do, which is very helpful for seed and A companies, is lend credibility. Like, you are an early stage company trying to sell to Paramount. Paramount is never going to respond to you. They get 100 emails a week. I have known the people at Paramount for 10 years. They trust James. James can lend his credibility to X company. X company can talk to Paramount. That is true of 50 other companies. That's very helpful. And then lastly, selling candidates, I think, can be helpful. It becomes kind of funny when, and this happened to me just this week, there's a candidate, unbeknownst to me, is talking to 2 CRV portfolio companies. CEO of one of the companies I invest in say, hey, James, speak to X and tell him why you invested in our company. I do it. I sell super hard. This is the best company, blah, blah, blah. He joins the company. We get an email from the other company being like, why did you sell against us? Unbeknownst to me.
Wait, you took 2 referral calls?
No, you take a referral call. No, you don't take 2 referral calls. I just took one for the same candidate for a company that I am not involved in, but a CRV company. That does happen because hopefully the CRV folks are looking for the best candidates and the best candidates are looking around. Yeah. But we can be very helpful there.
You could just say CRV-backed companies are targeting great engineers.
We certainly are.
We'll see how it pans out.
Yes. So if you're a great engineer, hit us up. We got jobs on jobs.
I want to ask a question, knowing what you know about the fundraising process from the VC side. If you were founding a company today, knowing what you know, how would you run that process?
I think it depends on your stage, but for the seed, pre-seed, early stage folks, um, I think it's extremely detrimental to you if you talk to people who are not focused on your stage. I never understood when pre-seed founders talked to me at Insight, in that you didn't get anything out of it other than a practice run. And you can get practice runs from anywhere. You shouldn't be calling up and wasting your time with growth stage firms. So stage specific firms that do what you want is super important. It sounds really basic, but very important. Don't go speak to T. Rowe Price if you're raising a $2 million seed fund. Love T. Rowe. Great, but not a seed fund. And then try and speak to the right person at the firm. And there's nothing quite like hot potato inside of a venture firm to kill a deal. Like, let's take an example. If a consumer investor, a consumer company pitches me, I'm a terrible consumer. Like, terrible. I don't know anything about consumer. But if I then pass the company to my partner, they're like, oh, you didn't like it? Even though it's not really me. And it's not that I didn't like it. I just don't know anything about it. You know, I don't know anything. I don't know the next thing about a AI companion. Like, it's just not the right person. And so try and make sure you pitch in the right stage. Try and make sure you're pitching the right person. And the other thing is, unless it's like a walk or a coffee, which would recommend that as getting to know people events, come prepared. It's not crazy, but just it's very basic, but have a couple of slides. Like, VCs take too many pitch meetings, and it's not an indictment on you. They could even say we don't need to use them, but many people help. It helps drive the conversation, and it also helps, and this may not be obvious, it helps me pitch it to my partners.
Right.
It's like, hey, had a great call, great meeting with this person. Here's what they do. Let me walk you through some slides so that they're prepped. So that as and when they say, hey, I'm going to have a second meeting, I'm going to bring them in, it's not totally cold. And it does help internally pitch. And I ask people for decks all the time. And I fear that they think I'm wasting their time. But it does actually help me. If I can go to my partner, Reed, and say, hey, Reed, like, I love this company. Here's the deck. Like, this is why I like it. What do you think?
Yeah.
It's much more articulate than 3 lines. That's a summary of a granola call or whatever it is. It's just not helpful.
Totally. Yeah. Same concept in enterprise sales. You know, you identify your champion, and that person is someone that sells on your behalf internally, even when you're not in the room.
Yeah.
But you need to give them the spear.
Venture capital, at the end of the day, is selling the ultimate commodity. My dollar is the same as the dollar at one of my competitors. It comes with different things behind, and it comes with me, but it's a commodity. It's a fungible asset. And so if you don't run best practices, you're putting yourself at a disadvantage. And it's a reflection of how you run your company. Not all the best fundraisers are the best CEOs. There are many exceptional fundraisers who are bad CEOs. There are also many exceptional CEOs who are bad fundraisers. But if you go through the list of the public CEOs, or Ali at Databricks, or the Carlson brothers at Stripe, or Guillermo at Vercel, they are great operators and great fundraisers. And it's because they are organized, they are eloquent, they think big, and they can articulate the vision of the company. And if you can't do that, you can't do it to candidates, and you can't do it to customers. And so it's bad.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So to play it back, what we've got so far is, if you're running the best fundraising processes, find the right fund in terms of fund stage and sector, find the right partner within the fund, come prepared to the first meeting. How should they think about in the first meeting what to focus on? Is it a pitch? Is it a conversation? How would you approach it as a founder?
I usually like to hear people's story, especially really early. It's like, why are you doing this? I believe that the most successful people in the world have options. You could go work at Jane Street. You could go work at Goldman. You could go work at Meta. Christ, you could be Andrew McTulloch and go pay $3 billion and do SSI Lab or whatever it is. But you are choosing to do your opportunity cost to do this, which is extremely risky and likely won't succeed. Why? Who are you as a person? And why are you doing this? And I think if you If you can articulate that in a way that that shows your motivation, that's pretty interesting. And so it's like who you are as a person and why you're doing this. I'm fascinated by that. And then why this, right? Like, Christ, why are you trying to build next generation network security, which would send 99% of people to sleep? Why are you doing agent identity? Why are you trying to build the next generation of Splunk? Like, why this? So I find that fascinating. And that often starts as a conversation in that walk me through the story, walk me through the articulation, walk me through the vision. That is very much conversation. And the deck is kind of like a crutch, which is like, I, James, am an idiot. Please explain to me what this category is and why it's interesting. And it's like, oh, it turns out blah, blah, blah. Like, I can do all the research in the world. I don't know some of these things. And so I do need to be helped a little bit. And this is true of many of my peers as well.
Mm-hmm. So you turn up to the meeting, you've come prepared, you've got your deck, but you're treating it very much like a back and forth, and it's as much about you as the idea. That's at seed. What about Series A? Are you expected to have, metrics, proof points?
At 99% of the funds and 99% of the investors in the world, and maybe even 100% of both of those, we are market takers.
Right.
And by that, I mean the market will dictate what is needed for a Series A. And I know that's not helpful for your listeners, but what I mean by that is that I've seen literally countless Series A's with no revenue. They have built a team, maybe they built a product, maybe they have pipeline, but they don't have any revenue. And then they've raised multiple rounds with no revenue. That happens. I've also seen companies come in with 5 million of ARR and can't raise a round. And it's a combination of not just metrics, right? But it's the team, the market, the vision, the product, the momentum, it's like a package that gets people excited. To kind of tie a bow on it, most Series A's are post-product. Most of them have some revenue. Most of them have some semblance of the articulation of why this could be big. That is like broad statements. But we live in a business of outliers. I regularly think back to some of the biggest companies in the world, and the Series A's didn't look really normal. And Series A's used to be $8 to $12 million for 20% of companies. Now it could be $60 million. We're living in a whole new world, which is really hard for your listeners and new to this world to navigate. And I appreciate that. It is challenging,
right?
But it's also an opportunity for companies to grow real fast. And I think people should try and do it if they want to. Having done this for 9-10 years, when I first started this job, it was awesome. In that I didn't know anything about the world. Cloud was a thing. 2016, Slack was raising $1 billion. Oh my God. All these things, crazy. And now it's like, OpenAI is 13 billion of ARR. 13 billion. How cool is that?
Is it 13 billion?
Yeah. 500 billion valuation doesn't seem that crazy. We are in an era of technology that you and I will never ever see again.
Yeah, I still don't even think any of us realize.
It's so cool and it's so early. It's so cool. It's so fun to be doing this. You gotta be in the best companies and make a bunch of money, but it's really, really cool.
I want to get your talk on stacking the cards in your favor, stacking the deck in your favor.
For me, James, or the companies I work with?
Your experience, right? I don't want you to overgeneralize. Just share with me how you've thought about where you put yourself. And I don't just mean in which fund, but you intentionally wanted to move over to San Francisco. And I'd love you to give the kind of expectation versus reality of coming to the Bay.
The weather's better and the food's better. I worked for Jeff Horry on Insight. And the number of times I'd walk into his office and pitch him on a Bay Area deal, I think he thought I lived here. And I like the unabashed aggressiveness of it. And New York has the same, it does, but it's less focused on tech. And it's focused on arts, music, theater, finance, you name it. It's just less focused. It has intensity. It does. It's just less concentrated. I love the unashamed aggressiveness of we're trying to build something really big, really fast, and it's likely going to fail. And it's so fun. So I love it here. People complain about the monoculture in that it's very just tech-centric, which I can appreciate.
I mean, for me, it was shocking. This is my first time in San Francisco, and I absolutely loved this about it. But every ad on the side of every bus stop is another
You want a new vector database?
AI IDE. I mean, I've seen everything from like
Amazing.
ClickHouse. It's not big tech. It's all of the up and coming companies that you want to win.
It's so cool. Yeah. It's a little jarring when you first come. You're like, what is Vercel? What is Zip?
Is that car driving itself?
Like, yes, there's the self-driving car, which is the closest to feeling like you're in the future that you'll ever have.
Yeah.
I
have to say, I'm going to sound so boomer now. We were talking about how in Silicon Valley we feel both like double our age, but it's one thing to see a Waymo whiz past you from the outside. It's one thing to sit next to the thing. When you're in that passenger seat and the wheel is turning itself, it's frightening.
It's amazing.
It's awesome.
When my parents came to visit me a year ago or something, they refused to go on a Waymo. And I just put them in one. I refused to listen to it. And they were like, this is the best thing ever. And so, it's very funny. Building a company is hard. It's really hard. You're going to have product downtime on the weekend. You're going to have an HR issue. You're going to have churn. There are just things that are going to happen. Like the product's not going to work. Like maybe no one else wants to buy it. You should do that. One, where your surface area for luck is accelerated. And San Francisco is not the only place that can do that. Like in my world, cybersecurity, 99% of the interesting companies are in the Bay Area or in Tel Aviv. Like the surface area for luck in those two places for that kind of type of company, very concentrated. But just broadly speaking, for the Bay Area, for not just cyber, but just they call it technology in general, the surface area for luck is high in that you may go to a party and meet a founding engineer, or you may go to a party and meet somebody who might want to try your product. And notwithstanding, like building a company is lonely. And it is pretty nice to have a bunch of peers who are going through a similar set of experiences at the same time and the same age who you can talk to. And it's not complicated to want that human connection and want that empathy. And so being here is a way to increase your luck. Building a company here is hard. Building a company anywhere is hard. You may as well do it where you can get lucky.
Mm-hmm. I know everyone talks about like the physical nature of San Francisco being like whatever it is, like 5 by 5 square miles, let's say. So there's a certain density of like people building companies. But I also want to touch on the cultural differences. You're a Brit, right? You were born and raised in the UK. What do you feel that's different in the air in San Francisco?
If you go back to, call it 2000, San Francisco had little to no tech. It was all Silicon Valley, right? Silicon Valley is the terminology that everyone knows. There's a TV show about it. It wasn't until the Twitter tax break where San Francisco became a tech hub, where Twitter moved to San Francisco, a bunch of companies moved here, Uber moved here, the companies happened. And now we're in an amazing period, which thank God post-COVID, where the city struggled, AI boom is San Francisco-centric. And in San Francisco-centric, I will credit Sam Altman and OpenAI for building in the Mission, and then subsequently near the Chase Center, which is where the basketball teams play for people listening in the UK, and Gary at YC. They've really brought the energy back to San Francisco.
Gary Tan,
yeah, and Y Combinator. Everyone here is coming to San Francisco. They're not actually rarely, I'm not saying never, do we see companies founded outside of San Francisco in Silicon Valley, if you will. In that young people want to live in the city, and they can do so now building with their peers. Their peers are no longer building out of Stanford. The Stanford kids come up here after they graduate. Or, the ex-Google engineers who live in Mountain View, fewer and fewer of those are starting net new companies because the company's been around for so long and people have made so much money, or they're big tech people. And so obviously, Google engineers can make amazing companies. I love Google engineers. Please pitch me. But San Francisco itself is thriving on that. And with the hacker houses, Y Combinator, the Anthropic, OpenAI of the world, you can't avoid it. Even you're talking about just the buses, they're everywhere.
Mm-hmm. We're going to go into a quick fire round now, James, and this has been so fun. So thanks for coming on.
This is a yes, no. What is this?
This is a sentence.
Okay.
In a sentence. Okay. It could be a yes, no. One book or piece of content that shaped or changed your worldview.
I really enjoy reading Fred from USV's essays.
Union Square Ventures.
Yeah, from Union Square Ventures, Fred Desson. In that they're very short. Paul Graham writes exceptional essays. Fred's are much shorter. For my early venture career, I used to read those religiously to kind of understand what's going on. My favorite being when he talks about dollar cost in and dollar cost out. For people who don't know what that is, it's like when he was an early investor in Coinbase, which was an incredible investment. But he sold parts of it as the business rose up, which obviously means a less ultimately high return. But, as a fiduciary, you need to or should sell along the way up. And I listen a lot about that. A lot of people have written paper markups for a long time and can't eat paper. And so that's why I think it's really important to sell as you go up.
One lesson that you've learned or way that you've changed how you approach life in the last, let's say, 5 years.
I've become somehow more aggressive and more direct. My appreciation for time and the lack thereof of it. I don't have kids, which, to my peers in the industry who do, I have utmost respect for how you do these things. But I am much, much more urgent now than I was when I was 21.
Mm-hmm. If you could speak to your 21-year-old self and you only had 15 minutes, what would you say to James?
I would tell him definitely to go on that first date in July 30th, 2017. I would tell him move to San Francisco, but after July 30th, 2017, because that was in New York. And I would probably tell him to buy Bitcoin. That would have been an easier way to make money.
I should have caveated that with no financial advice. Final question from me, James. And again, thanks for coming on. If we could fast forward, you're 31 now?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So I'm 29, you're 31. If we could fast forward, let's say 4 years, and you and I are sat next to each other on the proverbial deck chair in San Francisco, and maybe we're at the top of, what's that hill right next to the Mission? Mission Dolores. Beautiful view over San Francisco. And I turn to you and I say, and remember we're 70 at this point, and I say, James, what was it all for?
Like, if you're not enjoying it on a day-to-day basis, do something else. It's so fun on a day-to-day basis. I love this job.
James Green, thanks so much for coming on.
Amazing. Thank you.